talk a lot on this channel about horror comedies and art house horror, all kinds of cross-genre stuff, but today's movie inspired me to ask, what's your favorite horror action picture? Please answer below down in the comments. I'm Adam Caesar, this is Project Black T-shirt. If you like the review and you like what you're seeing, please hit subscribe, and if you don't like it, please move along without commenting at all. Today we're going to be talking about Mayhem, the new movie by Joe Lynch. Joe Lynch has been making movies for a while, and he first started out making a big splash with a movie that no one expected much of anything from, Wrong Turn 2, which is straight-to-video sequel to Wrong Turn, which is a movie that I didn't 100% love when it came out. But Wrong Turn 2 won a lot of people over, myself included, with its just general freshness and subversion of genre tropes and comedy. It's a movie that takes a title that you would be like, oh, what's this gonna be? Lynch made quite a few movies since then, and he's been involved in a bunch of different horror and horror-adjacent projects, but I personally don't think most of his movies have stacked up to that kind of first initial I'm here blast of Wrong Turn 2 and what it does so well. I'm very, very happy to say that Mayhem is his best film, easily, I think. Just came out, it's now streaming on Shudder, which we talked about Shudder a few months ago, and I did like a whole is Shudder worth it kind of thing. I'll link to that video, but spoiler alert, Shudder is worth it, and it's very much worth it just this month just to watch this movie. The film stars Yeun of Walking Dead fame and Samara Weaving, who just made kind of a bigger genre splash in The Babysitter. The Babysitter was not really a movie that I loved, wasn't really for me, but Samara Weaving, between this picture, Mayhem, and her small but very impactful and very funny role in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, she's fantastic. She's really, really great. So is Yeun, and this is kind of what I think is a star-making performance. I haven't really seen much of The Walking Dead, so I haven't really seen what other people have seen him in and loved him in, but if this movie's any indication, he's great. The plot is kind of a hodgepodge of a few basic horror tropes and a few basic action tropes kind of mashed together and reconfigured in such a way to make something new. We start out with this voiceover narration that I'm going to admit is one of the weaker elements of the film to me, because it explains a lot of stuff that we see and then have other characters explain to us. So I'm not quite sure that the framing it that way works, but we get this quick, succinct explanation in the beginning that there is this temporary zombie-esque virus that when you get infected, you basically get a really bad case of pink eye in one eye, and you have lowered inhibitions, you have a heightened id, and you just want to like tear things up. Our hero, our protagonist, Derek, this lower level lawyer, this suit, who is notorious for the legal defense that he came up with that got the first person off who committed the murder while they had this red eye virus. We flash forward a little bit. Our lawyer protagonist is at this job that this soul-crushing kind of corporate lawyer job that he kind of hates, and then wouldn't you know it, the entire building gets infected with this redder virus that lowers everyone's inhibitions and makes them crazy. We're structured where our hero, we want him to kind of commit heinous crimes and ascend to the higher levels as he tries to take revenge on the board members who have just fired him at the beginning of the movie. It's a very, very rambling explanation for a movie that is quite novel in its setup. It's kind of the Raid Redemption meets 28 Days Later with a kind of satirical bend to it. And I say satirical, and the best way that I can describe this movie without describing the plot is to call it Paul Verhoeven on a budget. This is the kind of movie that I feel like Verhoeven would have made in maybe the 90s. It is a searing, kind of angry, a little bit cynical, but a little bit goofy, so you can't really get too mad at it, take on corporate politics and the heartlessness of corporate America, and there's some housing crisis stuff in there because Samara Weaving's character is really just trying to stop these lawyers from foreclosing on the place where she lives. One of the things that really struck me about this movie is how nice it looks. It's got this cool, actiony aesthetic, which is really saying something when you've kind of built the story around, you know, flat office environments to make it look cool and to give it this great sense of motion is really commendable. there are many, many opportunities for our two protagonists to get into fist fights and nail gun fights and broken glass and staplers and power tools, and there's a lot of different very inventive, like some kills and some things I feel like I really haven't seen before, brought to life in this weird, fun way. And there's a certain amount of like, should I be rooting for these people? Shouldn't I be rooting for these people? Are they in control of what they're doing? Are they not in control of what they're doing? And I think the conceit with this virus is really, really a smart one, because you can see that it makes bad guys way worse and good guys a little bit morally questionable. I'm not 100% on board with like everything in the movie, with every joke, with every reference, with every little thing. I do think there are moments where it clunks, but it's a movie that moves. It's like an hour and 27 minutes. It's fun from beginning to end. It's way funnier than you think it's going to be starting out, and it has a real warped but there moral center and thematic resonance in that, like, these two bigger conceits, the going up the tower video game-esque like fighting mini bosses along the way, and the killer virus thread, they both really inform the subtext and what the movie's quote-unquote about. So I love that anytime that happens. This is 100% a rent or a buy on Blu-ray if you don't have Shudder, but if you do, it's up there. You already subscribed to it. You probably should be watching it right now instead of watching this video. Also on Shudder, I think they put the commentary track on there. There's a way to watch this streaming with a commentary track, which is something that a lot of more streaming services should do. So hats off to you, Shudder. That's a great idea, and we'd love to keep seeing more of that stuff, so please do it. As we do every week, today I've got a book recommendation for you, and this is not the recommendation that I originally started out wanting to talk about this week, but last week we lost Jack Ketchum. Incredible writer. You might know from Off Season and The Girl Next Door. Even if you don't know those books, you may know the film adaptations of them. Just one of my favorite writers, and one of the writers who especially starting out, I'd kind of see him at conventions, and he was always super cool to me, and always very giving with advice and things like that. And by all accounts, and for what I've seen in the last few days, everyone talking about him, he was just a fantastic guy. But I knew him primarily for his writing, and his writing is beautiful and brutal and intelligent and literary, in a lot of ways that I think he doesn't get the credit for that he should. So today, for the book recommendation, I wanted to talk about a book that's probably one of the lesser known ones, because you may have read Off Season, you may have read The Girl Next Door, you may have read The Lost. Those are all incredible and great books. You may have read Red. But today I want to talk about Ladies' Night. A little bit of background. I would think originally Ladies' Night was meant to be Ketchum's follow-up to Off Season, after Off Season was a hit, and it was this big novel that he had written with like sprawling, lots of subplots and backstory and all this different thing, and it was a huge manuscript, and supposedly he didn't like that, and he just kind of scrapped it or shelved it for a long while. Then he released a few more books, and then Ladies' Night came out, and when it came out, it's this slim little novella, short novel, and the reason I'm talking about it in association with Mayhem is that it is a kind of Night of the Living Dead, 28 Days Later-esque story, but the kicker is the infection only affects women. Only women turn into murderers, and it is a book that's way ahead of its time, that is, even though it's very quick and very gruesome and very kind of popcorny, has a lot on its mind. If you haven't read Ladies' Night, or if you haven't read Ladies' Night in a while and you thought it was kind of a minor work, I would recommend going back and checking it out again. It's great. Any Ketchum book you pick up, you're gonna enjoy. If you only know him from his film adaptations, or if you're like, oh, I've heard about this guy, let me go check out one of these film adaptations instead of picking up a book, please know that these adaptations range from very good to very redacted, but none of them can touch his novels. None of them can touch his writing. You really need to pick up a book, an ebook, or an audiobook, and check these books out for yourself the way they were originally intended, as prose. They're awesome. So that was Mayhem and Ladies Night by Jack Ketchum. I'm going to put those links down in the description as I always do. If you like this video, please hit like. If you really like this video, please subscribe. If you want to find out more about me or my work, there's a link down there where you can get on my mailing list and get a free sample and stuff like that, but I'm not going to belabor the point. Have a good day, everyone, and I'll see you next Friday.